In this video, we're going to look at 4 different setups for rappelling, as well as the edge tether setup for edge management. We'll start off with the edge tether management. I've got an independent anchor there for my edge tether. I established the length of the tether, making sure it's nice and a little bit short of the edge. And then go ahead and get my safeguard set up. I get it set up so that I know that it's appropriate. I get it lined up correctly. And then as I open it, I look for the little diagrams with the person and the hand. I know the hand goes towards the edge of the cliff. And I get the rope in there set up just right. As I get that thing back on my harness, I'll go ahead and give it a test and make sure that it's grabbing appropriately. Pulling rope through the other way as well. As I pull the other end back up, I'm making sure that I'm clipping into that. So I've got 2 separate carabiners, both into my belay loop. And one of them will allow me to keep them going off the edge. The other allows me an adjustable, secure attachment to that system. So I can adjust my setup, get out to the edge, and I get everything all squared. In this setup, Matt is going to do he's going to rappel with a true belay and a second rope. So he's tied himself into a second rope, and he's got the rope through his rappel device into his belay loop or his rappel loop. And he's going to go ahead and head on over the edge there. I'm helping vector his rope as he manages himself over the edge. We've got that edge protection in place there. And as he heads on down there, he's going to maintain proper body position. Jake is going to belay him on a second rope. And so with that belay, Jake is making sure to pull rope out so as he's not actually controlling Matt's speed, he's just there as a backup. As the edge person, I am controlling that rope to make sure that there's no additional slack between the edge and the rappeller, pulling rope out so that all the slack that's available is between me and Jake. When we move into the fireman's, the pull belay, Matt's down at the bottom, and for the pull belay, he's making sure he keeps his eyes up on Jake. Jake is making his way over the edge there, and Matt needs to be aware that he's in the fall zone, so this isn't a drop zone. This isn't really an appropriate technique if there's a lot of loose rock. But he's got hands on the rope and he's eyes up, and he's really not pulling on that rope at all. He's just letting Jake mosey down the cliff as he sees fit. At whatever point Matt feels the need to stop Jake, whether if Jake loses control, then Matt can just give a good tug on that rope. And as he gives a tug on that rope, it acts like Jake's brake hand and will stop him from moving down the cliff. Of course, when he releases that, it will allow Jake to continue going, and Jake will have to take back over on the brake hand. There it is, Jake's got it. And Matt had it, and now it's, of course, back to Jake. Pull belay, pretty straightforward, managing a belay from the bottom. Our third setup here is the third hand, a self belay. Matt has extended his rappel device off away from his harness. There's a bunch of ways of doing that. He's chosen to use a Purcell prusik for his extension, and his prusik is set up so there's no way that it can possibly be tended or go or touch his rappel device. This is about as far out away as you would want a rappel device. Closer in is fine too, but you need to make sure that you have enough room to separate the third hand prusik from the extension from the device. Matt has that prusik clipped into a separate carabiner into his rappel loop, his belay loop. And you can see that prusik grabs the brake strand, and because it's only holding hand tension, it's easy to release even under tension.
Rolling.
And then for our last setup here, we'll look at self-belay on a second rope. I have a whole separate rope set up there, and with this, I'm using my Purcell as my self-belay on a second rope. I'm going to make sure that I don't tend that prusik as I'm going down, so as I go over the edge transition and continue down on my rappel, I will stop, and then I'll push the prusik down, and then I'll make movement down as I rappel, then stop, push the prusik down. What I'm not making sure I'm not going to do is grab the prusik and just slide down holding onto the prusik. Because of course if I were to let go of my brake hand accidentally and tend the prusik, then that wouldn't help me at all. I'd just zip right on down. So I'm making sure to push and let go, push and let go.